What makes a good story?
I think it's interesting because I think there's like a really profound answer of that a story needs to have this, that, and list of all the things. But ultimately a good story needs to have conflict, contrast, and some sort of insight to the future. If it has those like three ingredients, it doesn't really matter about how in-depth it is or how researched it is. Like, people like to be taken on a journey. And I think if you boil it down to those three things, it's like, you look at anything that exists from Pixar, who are amazing storytellers, to pictures that you've seen. They all kind of start with this idea of this is the landscape that we're in right now. The conflict is that landscape isn't good and we want to make a change from it. And if we were to make a change, it would look like this. And it's like, oh, great, I've got an insight into the future. And then kind of greater storytellers kind of play with that format over and over again to just make things more exciting, take you on that journey of like, oh, it could be, but then no, and then it could be, and then something else came in the way and we had to pivot. And then, I think the best people that summarize what a great story is the creator of South Park. And they talk about, I'm going to totally mess this up, but they talk about basically how you change using and all the time to saying, I went outside and it was sunny and then I saw a dog, and change it to and then the second part being but then. So it's like I went outside and it was sunny, but then it started to rain.
I saw this clip again recently, actually. It was something like, if you ever say therefore or and, I think it's therefore and, you're fucked. And if you say but then, or something that switches it up, basically.
Yeah.
Then you're onto something. People are like, ooh, what's going on here?
That's that conflict.
I'm trying to get through the hero's journey, and the guy who authored that, he got a whole collection of works going through lots of things, and 8-stage journey of the hero's journey. And it's always starting with something goes wrong, or something's good actually, and then something goes wrong, and there's this conflict, and there's this growth, and there's this next challenge, and it's all to finally come back around. And it almost feels too formulaic, but also it always works.
I think what's kind of crazy about like formulas and like the way that we kind of make things modular is a lot of people are like, well, it's not cool, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. It's like, we're human beings. Like, this is literally what we do all day, every single day. There is a formula to the way that you start the day. Some people have coffee, some people go for a jog, some people will read the Bible, whatever it is, there is a formula in which you follow, a pattern in which you follow. And because we're creatures of habit, the formula helps us to actually be like, oh, okay, cool, I get it. Before I've gotten it, I get it. And because I get it, I feel comfortable and I feel intrigued. So I think the cool thing about like hero's journey and just watching films in general, just hearing stories, is intrinsically, there is something good is going to happen at the end. The part that kind of takes you on that journey and makes you go, oh, I need to kind of lock in properly is, how are we going to get to that point? Don't actually really care about like, someone goes on a show like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and what happens? They win £1 million, they win $1 million. We know this from the very beginning. They either do or they don't. What's cool is how much they have to fight to get there, how many times they have to phone a friend, how many times they have to lean on the audience, if the audience then gives them the wrong answer, and it's that but, that kind of contrast, that back and forth is like, I don't know, the formula works for a reason. We've been storytellers for many, many more years before I was born, and it will be many more years after I've gone, so.
Sometimes I think though about how formulaic that this means it gets really boring, right? Because now we go, okay, you must tell stories. That's how you get ahead on social media, for example.
Yeah.
And then everyone's doing the same thing. And the stories are not always that valuable, but they've managed to like hook you in somehow. They've like figured out the psychology behind the dopamine hit or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it just like, it feels like it's made some things so noisy, like social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, that feels so noisy.
Yeah.
Everyone who wants to build a personal brand of some kind has to have a sob story. Sometimes you don't have one, which makes it like worse. Or sometimes you're just not ready to share yours, which is another challenge on the other end of that spectrum. I don't know. What do you think about like the noise and getting it right so that you're not just contributing to noise?
Yeah, I think Really quite simply, there's always been noise. Like, the only reason why it probably feels more apparent now is because we're more attached to our devices. And because we're more attached to our devices, there are more things to serve that attention-seeking part of our brains that says, feed me with content, feed me with content. You're going to get good content, you're going to get bad content. So with that, it's the idea of an elevated or increased level of noise is just more visibility to more people. If you were to look at 50 businesses within your local area that all have the same offering, they all sell it in different ways, and some will be better at selling it and others will be worse. Doesn't change the caliber of the work. So all of that to basically say, when it comes to noise, one school of thought is it's bad. We're seeing loads of influencers doing sob stories and the slow piano and my life is hard, but you should back me. And then you're also seeing these other kind of great founders who are coming up and saying, hey, here's the David and Goliath that we've got within our team, and we're trying to battle these huge companies, we're trying to battle these huge norms and these legislations and so on and so forth, and they're educating along the way. So my thought process is less about, hey, it's really noisy, it's really hard, and it's really difficult, and more about if you have a space in which the majority of people are doing things poorly, then to stand out, you don't actually have to do that much more. You just have to kind of be, first thing I guess is intentional, not saying just to say, not sharing stories just to be like, okay, I want to get ahead on social media. Like, what do you actually want to, who do you actually want to impact and why do you want to impact them? And then the second thing is kind of tying that with who you are as, I guess, as a company, as a business, but your morals and your beliefs. And with those two things, do they stand the test of time? So if you were to share your story for another 10 years straight with the same morals, and the landscape would have totally changed and legislation would change and people were to not believe in what you're doing anymore, could that story still be true? Maybe with some small tweaks, but can it still be true? And if the answer is yes, then you will be one of the 10% that actually makes it through the noise, rather than sit with the 90% that are here today and gone tomorrow, basically.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the show, or back to the show for those of you who aren't new here. Getting lots of new faces these days, and so I just wanted to take a quick sec to introduce myself. Hey, I'm Seven, and also to give you a quick announcement. As a little bit of background, this show used to be very focused on what it meant to be a leader, but I quickly realized I already had my answer, which is that I believe you already are one. And it's just about becoming more of that person you want to be. So we're talking about the world, self-leadership, personal development, humanity, discovery, self-discovery, and so much more. This is a place where deep conversations happen in a way that helps you become more of that person you want to be. And so if you appreciate that and you want to help us grow, but I know you're tired of people hearing, we've been hearing this for over a decade, like and subscribe and share the episode, and I get it, but look, it is genuinely the biggest and best thing that you can do. I don't play ads or any crap like that. I do this and take this time to say thank you because I appreciate you and where this show is going. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Lots of love, and let's get on with the episode. I want to go more into this thought process behind how to understand your why and get that, craft that message right. But before we do, I want you to give us an example of a good story by telling us your story. Who are you and what brought you to this table in front of me?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can answer both, I think, essentially. Really quite simply, the abridged version is I made a personal branding agency by mistake. And it began 10 years ago when I naively thought I could take on the world with video and work with every single business owner and transform their lives. This is like 2015-ish, I guess, when Instagram was kind of getting really, really big and businesses were starting to explore the idea of actually being on there. My whole ethos was, you've got a page, you've got some really kind of basic content on there. If I can get video done for you, you'll get way more sales, and then I'll be the best agency in the world. A one-man band was the idea back in the day. And I spent a year and a half going up to businesses, trying to sell them this idea, and failed over and over again. One, because there was no real story behind why I wanted to work with them other than, I'm going to change your life. How? No traction, no past clients, just I can do it. And the second part was the fact that they needed some sort of reference. They needed some sort of idea of what it would look like. So I did free work to get the portfolio, then moved to another sector, got more free work to get the portfolio. And And it essentially was probably the worst business model I've ever made in my life. Great for learning, great to kind of understand actually there is reasons why people invest into other businesses. Like the B2B market is very different from what is the B2C market. And then kind of fast forwarded when I kind of amassed some clients, I got really bored. Got very bored of this idea of I go in, I film a product, I leave. I go in, I film a product, I leave. Yeah, margins would go up, sales would go up by 3-4%, business owners were happy, but it was just really boring work. So I'd start to ask them questions. Hey, like, why did you make X product? Why did you start doing Y service? And they'd tell me these amazing stories, and I'd be like, oh, this is awesome. This is really, really cool. You should talk about it more. And it went from product videos to product videos with a little bit of a founder story. And then I was like, well, actually, maybe the founder story should go at the beginning and the product should go at the end. And that converted even better. And then it was like, oh, actually, what if it was just the founder story because the product or service is now, I don't know, it feels a bit like, here's a beautiful story, buy this product. And that kind of brings us up to today where it's very much like I got into a space where I got known within a small circle of people as the guy that would help you with storytelling as a founder, but based on your story and your story alone. The products and the services that you offer would kind of be nicely tied into the story, but less the forefront and more so it would be mission driven and impact driven.
Why was the story you just told me a good one?
I don't necessarily think that my stories are good.
Okay.
I think that they interestingly follow the formula and the structure that we were talking about earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is relatable, probably more so, is the fact that there is this idea, and this is the truth, of somebody who started off a business with an idea and was totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you have two kind of avenues you can take from that. Number one is continue believing you're right and live that life forever and constantly chase clients in like this circle. Or number two, stop and call yourself an idiot and say, hey, is there a better way of doing this? And I think in the world of business, a lot of people will be able to relate to the fact that actually they have built things that didn't work out the way that they planned, or they were a bit naive and they were able to kind of, I'd say, pivot in some senses and rebrand in other senses, but ultimately look at what they have and say, what if we were to wipe this away and start again? And I think that's the part that's like quite cool to be able to share, to be able to kind of tell people, I am as human as you are. I have my flaws, and more importantly, I'm happy to share them. Like I don't go around prophesying I'm going to change your life. It's like, no, actually, I'd start with myself before I can look at anybody else.
There's the challenge, there's how you overcame it, there's the vulnerability, and there's the authenticity. And even if you don't think about it as a formula, if you can apply those as principles, maybe something just kind of naturally arises from that.
Yes, it can. And I think the difficulty that some people, not all, is that creates a lot of pressure.
Pressure
Yeah.
on the person telling the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
So imagine right now, I tell you, let's do this as an exercise, right? I want you to tell me a story about a time that you helped someone, but I want you to be as authentic as possible. I want you to show me that there was a turning point in which you learned from your own mistakes. And also I want it to be something that is relatable to other people. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden, can you?
I probably can, but I have to think for a sec. But
No problems, yeah.
okay. One specific person.
Or maybe a group. I love that you're giving this thought. This is great.
So the really pivotal things are the things that probably started my entire career. So when we're talking, I was probably like 16 years old. And I wanted to help out a friend I met at a youth advisory board with his business that he was working on. We were both 16 years old, obviously didn't know what we were doing, wanted to change the world, didn't know how. And I wanted to help out with this like client service event thing program he was running, and just kind of got involved. It was really challenging because we didn't know what we were doing. We made every single mistake in the book. You talked about 2015, you went in and did things, But imagine you're a 16-year-old, you go and you think you know the things you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell these people who are at least double your age, how things are nowadays and all these things. Trying to convince them to go for a non-linear service, what I would now call something non-linear. So this isn't directly impacting her bottom line, but you are complaining about the effects of it, and the effects of those things impact your bottom line. We didn't know how to tell that story. We only were able to get into a few rooms because he had a personal brand. I had my own challenges going on. My mental health wasn't there. I felt really bad because I felt like the only things I could contribute were behind the scenes, the operational things, because I couldn't do any of the selling. I didn't have the personal brand. I didn't have the charisma that he had. Even at the young age, he had a lot of that. A few years later, and of continuing to do this, we actually go into business and co-found this together as a business, and that changes my life because I'm now in the entrepreneurship game.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how my career starts-ish. But I didn't know what I was doing, didn't know how to improve what I was doing, would sometimes like get on his case because I would feel bad, but that was me, that I didn't know how to deal with my own mental health at the same time, but I was just going in to help. And as a result, my entire life since has been actually, I'm ground zero, I'm case study number one of how to overcome your own internal narrative so that you can get out of your own way and create more of the life that you want. So I was kind of offering him help, but really everyone that I can support now, I can support because I had to go through it myself and figured out that often we're our own biggest enemy. That's now shaped my entire life. Just last night, I was delivering a workshop. It was more of a like guided meditation session for some entrepreneurs, and people will ask questions afterwards, and I can contribute loads of ideas, practical things. I can guide them through it, but I can also give them things they can take away. And all of that is only because I was able to do it for myself, so I kind of know what works and I know what doesn't. And there are things most people are not courageous enough to explore. They kind of need to receive it reactively from the world to take that growth. I don't know if that answers your question now.
So this is great, right? I think one, it's awesome that you went to what essentially is the most pivotal story for you within kind of world's entrepreneurship, which is like typically the one that you would have said the most, right? The second thing is in it has all the ingredients we talked about earlier on about that kind of idea of this is where I was, the hero's journey, right? This is where I was. This is the conflict that I'm trying to fix, and how do we get over this arc? And you gave a but. Like at a certain point, we realized this wasn't working. Fast forward to years later, we've built a company and we're now still figuring things out. And fast forward today, so on and so forth. So the pressure comes in for these kind of things, which is great, is social media will have you thinking, okay, well, that's one story, and I need to do this every single day.
Okay.
Then the second thing is, I can only repackage that story so many times. That story might have been 2.5 minutes. Now I say to you, you've got 30 seconds to put it on TikTok, a minute to put it on Instagram, another minute on LinkedIn, and then you've got to do a 5-minute version for YouTube. And I say, record. And that is an insane amount of pressure to give somebody to be able to kind of convey a story quite easily. So I think the principles, which is the original question about like authenticity, having a turning point, all these kind of things, they're good to have in the back of your mind. They're awesome to know, they're awesome to know about, but the difficulty is if they're at the forefront of your mind, what happens is, what happened at the end there is you go, I've said the thing, does it answer the question? Rather than just being able to say, I know some things in the back of my mind, but here are the things that I want to hit. Point A, point B, point C. And once I've hit those points, you can then revise. And the more you do it, the more you tell stories, you can tell the long version, you can tell the mid version, you can tell the short version. But ultimately what you want is a baseline that doesn't add more pressure. Because you're busy, you've got a busy life. You yesterday are doing a workshop, today you're doing a podcast, tomorrow you're doing something else. And then someone sticks a camera in front of you on Friday and says, hey, can you now tell me your origin story in 4 different ways?
Right.
All of those formats, it's a lot.
I think like even more than pressure, you're describing fatigue, energy levels, and the sheer amount you need to do. I've had to do that once and I can prepare for it, and that's it, done. And actually sometimes you can do that, right? I get really good at telling my story. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But what you're describing with the content game specifically is always have a new idea and you've got to find some way of bullshitting that. And when I say the noise, almost that's really what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
There's so much bullshit out there, even if it's valuable. That's not even the point. It's just if everyone is trying to do the personal brand thing.
Yeah.
At what point is it like, I'm just done with social media. I'm just tired.
Let's use LinkedIn as an example, right? It's probably the best example of why this problem exists. LinkedIn is the greatest place to go on and watch people talk about how great they are and make other people feel low and shallow for the most part. So if you go on LinkedIn without kind of really knowing anyone, you kind of add the most famous people you know, you get the same issue that you have with Instagram and well, I'll speak in Instagram, where it's like they're portraying a certain lifestyle that for most people isn't really achievable, and therefore you kind of see it from a distance. Then you go to kind of add some people that you might know personally who will constantly announce, I'm pleased to announce that, and it will be job position upgrade or they've gone on a sabbatical or whatever it is. But it's all kind of great news all the time. There is a very small group, very niche group, call it the 1%, because it literally is 1% on LinkedIn, of people that are, one, constantly posting on a weekly basis. And then from that 1%, there's a smaller group of people who are like, I don't care about this facade. I don't care about all the social media. I don't care what people have subscribed to. What I care about is impact. So the impact storytellers, really quite simply, are the ones that are driving this wave of let's not fatigue everybody else. And I think the fatigue doesn't actually come from, TikTok versus LinkedIn versus YouTube versus whatever. It actually comes from what are you following? The same way as a diet works, right? You can say that, oh, this food is making me feel sluggish and it's making me feel horrible. And it's like, why are you choosing to eat that food? Find that small group within the small group that actually serves you. And yeah, maybe the future of personal branding doesn't look the same in 10, 15 years time. Maybe we'll move on to something else. Highly, highly likely that will happen. But what has been consistent for the whole time is originally we had brand stories. So we talk about the uprising of this kind of brick and mortar business that's family owned and how now it's a huge mega superstore and serves the whole of the UK, serves the whole of the US and whatever. And now we're kind of on a layer deeper and we really like the founder's journey. And we like how they've built a company and built multiple companies, because that's a really big thing now. What that next stage or next phase looks like may be different, but the theme throughout all of these things has been people attach themselves to the stories that drive these brands, be it personal, be it business, be it whatever the next weird AI phase happens to be. That's always going to be true. So kind of, I'd say find that small circle within the circle.
How?
There are multiple ways. I guess if you're scrolling with intent.
Which almost none of us do.
Exactly. And this might be the wake-up call.
Okay.
But if you're scrolling with intent, you will know that there are certain things that you follow because they are good brain-numbing exercises. So memes are a great example. And I'm not prophesying that I don't watch memes. Like 2 a.m, you can catch me sending out nonsense memes for no reason.
And it's just so unclear, by intent, you mean when you do it consciously.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also you're aware of what you're doing. So you're scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through TikTok, scrolling through whatever platform it happens to be. And if you were to spend 30 minutes and say, okay, how much of this content is actually teaching me stuff? How much of this content is just entertaining me? And how much of this content is doing a bit of both? You'll find that maybe your percentages are, for the entertaining, it's like 90%, and the educating, it's like 8%, and the mix of the two is like 2%.
And maybe I think a lot of us, we're not even feeling entertained. Our brain is being entertained, but we're not actually enjoying that. It's not like I'm going to a movie and I'm enjoying the movie I'm watching.
We're just chasing dopamine because that was kind of funny. Maybe the next one will be better. Maybe the next one will be better. Same as like going to a casino. I put a little bit of money on, maybe the next roulette reel will be even better. So again, same thing with intent. If you actually analyze it and say, okay, now that I've looked at my scrolling, and you don't have to do a big exercise, doesn't even be a spreadsheet, it can literally just be whip out your phone, scroll as you normally do, and just mentally have a little tally. One, you can unfollow people. They won't get upset. They won't die. It's fine. No one's going to be upset. And if they are, probably not the best person to follow. Because you want them to be followed because you want to follow them because they're engaged with what they do. But unfollow the people that don't really serve you. And number 2, start to follow the people that you feel into that category of either education or edutainment, or whatever you want. If you want more memes, do more memes. then the algorithm does something really special that people don't really talk about that much. Everyone complains about how bad the algorithm is because it always gives you more of the nonsense and more of the noise. It's like, if you subscribe to noise, you will get more noise. If you subscribe to edutainment, you'll get more edutainment. If you subscribe to straight education, you get more education. So these are an example of this that I can give you, which is actually hilarious for me to watch. Is my son is 1.5 years now, and he started watching kind of a couple of cartoons and things that he likes. But he started watching it on my YouTube account because we connect to the TV and he can watch his stuff and it's all good, it's all great. I now get suggestions for all sorts of brush your teeth songs and good morning songs and all this kind of stuff that I don't want, but obviously they serve him. So what's happening is he's slowly kind of changing my feed is that goes from great storytellers to big entrepreneurs who've like done really well and those who are kind of on that path and on that journey. And then out of nowhere, I'm seeing Cocomelon and I'm seeing Jules TV and what's the other one? There's a bunch of them basically. But that kind of just goes to show, right? He's 1.5 years. He's not watching YouTube 17 hours a day. He might watch 30 minutes today and an hour tomorrow, if that, but it's already starting to have an effect. So again, intentionally watching has an effect. It's just something that we choose not to do for some strange reason.
Well, and then when we're on the other side of it, we're contributing to the noise. So walk me through how I can contribute to the opposite of noise, which I guess you could call signal, right?
Yeah.
Like high frequency, very intentional, very consciously designed in a good way. And because you mentioned this thing about like intentional people who don't care what the algorithm wants. And it's like, okay, but then no one sees you then. If people don't click and share the thing and no one sees you, so it doesn't work. And then so describe how I can be like a high signal storyteller online on the social media, in the social media game.
There's two things there.
Okay.
One is, if we're defining high signal as somebody who is part a storyteller and they're kind of obviously trying to educate their audience, that kind of stuff, that's wonderful and that's great. When we're calling them high signal, what qualifies them as high signal? Is it the fact that people go to them and they follow them and they engage with them and that's what makes them high signal? Or is it the content they're putting out?
Whatever the opposite of noise is. So when I'm contributing to the noise, I'm putting out crap content. So I guess content, to answer your question.
So you're coming from the perspective of you are the founder, or you are the person, it doesn't really matter if you're a founder or not, and you are making content online. And how do you contribute towards what is signal?
Or it's really good content, yeah.
Start with why, which is always our favorite question. Start with why, which feels like an ad for Simon Sinek's book. But I think it's, if you were to look at the reason why you're actually contributing online, if it's for self-gain, you're saying, listen, I'm doing this for business purposes and I'm trying to promote my business, then that is what you're contributing to. And within that field, there is a certain type of noise and there is a certain type of signal. If you're doing it to educate people, same thing again, certain type of noise, certain type of signal. The best performing videos on the internet aren't always the ones that you should chase after. So if you wanted to contribute towards the noise and you start with why, you're understanding really quite like profoundly, without doing too much work, one, what is the impact that I want to have when someone watches my videos? Not this specific video that I'm doing today, my videos in general. Number two, if someone were to describe the content that I make, how would they describe it? And if the answer is kind of all over the place, then yeah, you're contributing towards noise. The meme pages versus the kind of founder-led storytelling pages have the same thing in common, which is they follow a track and they go down that track over and over and over and over again, and they don't deviate from it. So your consistency and kind of your why in terms of what your lane is and what you're trying to provide your audience with is going to kind of determine whether you're kind of high noise or high signal. So yeah, one start with why. The second thing would be looking at that objectively and not subjectively. So once a month, once a quarter, looking at the comments that you're getting, looking at the kind of engagement you're getting, the DMs, things like that, and seeing what resonates with people. If there is a certain type of content within what you're making that people really love and they really enjoy and they speak well of, and it speaks to the impact that you're trying to have, do more of that. And that's how you kind of funnel it down to you can't start by being like, I know exactly what I want and it's going to be perfect. It never is. It's how we start businesses, it's how we do things in life. We start messy and we kind of tidy up along the way. So yeah, you won't be high signal straight away, but you will get there if you kind of follow the kind of fundamentals of knowing your why, making sure that you are kind of optimizing for good and not for noise, and making sure that like you kind of stay consistent with that.
I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit because I'm someone who's like, I am tired of social media. So I'm like, I'm speaking from firsthand experience.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really want to be on Instagram. I don't really want to be on LinkedIn. I do some posting. I don't do blah blah blah. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to make the distinction that it's a really powerful thing to do, and you should do it, but you have to do it right. Because when I think about the story you just gave, right? And every guest on the show, I ask him to some extent, what's your story? What was your childhood like? What's created the person that you have, that you are now, etc. And similar to yourself, there's usually some level of vulnerability there, right? This thing was a challenge. This part was the worst thing ever. This is how I stumbled into where I am now. And I really appreciate that. And a lot of people have some kind of story of something. Some people don't, but a lot of us have something we can read into. And then we just don't do it effectively. So what we end up doing instead is we do what we think the algorithm needs, or I almost, maybe there's like a scale of like arrogant and like, this is what I think is interesting, but no one else does on one end.
Yeah.
And then like, I'm too scared to tell my story, but when I do, people really resonate on the other. And somewhere in the middle maybe is where the signal is, where I'm telling it, but I'm telling it effectively, usefully, and in a way that's actually going to impact people that I have to somehow know is going to impact them, because otherwise there's just more crap content out there.
Yeah.
So, you can say, if you don't build your online personal brand presence, you're leaving money on the table, for example. But I could also flip it, playing devil's advocate, and be like, well, on the other end, if you do it poorly, you just sunk a lot of time into fuck all.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for this, like, practically the middle ground.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of points there. The first one is, you said like some people have a story, some people don't. I think everyone has stories, like a plethora of stories. The ability to tell them in a way that is effective and that resonates is another level. So yeah, sometimes those stories get lost and get mismatched, but there are ways around that. Within the startup world, typically when you have a founder who isn't really kind of interested in that story-led kind of journey, they will get a co-founder who is, and that just balances those kind of ways. So you'll see that a lot. Typically with technical founders, they want to get into the roots of doing things and not sharing this beautiful story. It's like, it was hard and we moved on, and it was hard and we moved on. We'll get somebody who can do the flowery talking, as some people like to call it, which is great. Then to your point about like, kind of adding on to that, there's, on the one hand, you've got this kind of arrogance, and on the other hand, it's like, oh God, I don't know what to do. I don't want to share my story. It's a sliding scale, and it's constantly sliding. If you were to look at the last 4 posts from anyone who we would deem as doing particularly well, you will see that some posts are really arrogant. Some posts are 100% arrogant, because they will start off by saying, when I was 21 years old, I had no money, and now I have $1 billion. And it's like, that's a crazy sentence to say. Like, we would never say that to somebody in real life. And what happens? We see that and we click it to be like, how bad is bad? And there's some sort of lesson, some sort of gem in the middle, and we go, okay, it wasn't that bad. But that starting sentence, total arrogance, and it works, and they know that it works, and that's why they start there. And then the other side, it's like, I'm too scared to tell my story. You would be amazed at the amount of people that post a test post before the real post. I am one of them, and I do it all the time.
What does that mean?
So essentially, if there is a concept, an idea, or something that I think I could share this and I think it might do well, but I'm not sure, I will just make the simplest, easiest, shortest version of it that I can and see if it actually works. So I'm of the school of thought of, I'm very happy to be proved right, and I'm very happy to be proved wrong. I just want to figure out if it's one of the two. So a really easy example, and you can look at my LinkedIn for this, is a lot of the videos that have gone up were originally text posts. So I have this thing that I post like once a week called Founder Files, and they're just conversations that I have with other founders that highlight what is a potential myth. So one of the things might be social media doesn't equal revenue. A lot of people say that if you post online, they're leaving money on the table, and therefore you should post online. And other people will say, well, if I post 7 times a week, it hasn't changed my bottom line, so what's the point of doing this? And I posted this as it's literally, there is nothing to it by way of design. It's the simplest thing. It's a gray background with black text, and it says something along the lines of, if I post online, my revenue doesn't change, so I'm not going to do it. And I will then write a post of my thoughts about that, as in, yeah, you're totally right. If it's done in the right way, you can definitely make money. But if you don't do it in the right way, 100% it's a total waste of time. Don't do it. I'm more than happy to advise someone not to start a personal brand if the ingredients aren't in place, and if the heart is in the right place and the impact isn't kind of there. But if those ingredients are there, if someone is saying, hey, look, this is our company, this is our mission, we're really, really trying to get into these spaces. And that doesn't necessarily mean just with consumers. It might be that they're trying to lobby for government. They might be they're trying to get strategic partnerships outside of the market that they're currently operating in. Whatever it is, and their path to getting there is through education and so on and so forth, then that's like an awesome kind of thing to kind of say, hey, let's do this. But going back to the point, that post just serves to see if people, one, will engage with it and people start a conversation around it. Those posts fundamentally have been the biggest signal for me to make a longer form video. So rather than spending time making videos that I'm not sure it's going to work, I'm not sure it's going to work, I just post it. If that post gets 4 likes, what have I lost? There's no design to it. It's, again, a great background and some text, and then I do some writing underneath it and by way of caption. But that's it. I post one of those once a week, and I learn from it. And this is going to that point of optimizing, looking at actually what works and what doesn't work. And some of the ones that have failed, I've still gone on to make videos because maybe the wrapping or the way that I've written it in the moment didn't really make as much sense as I thought it would. Mm-hmm. So yeah, sitting on either side of the scale is kind of a longer answer to what is a short question. Everyone's post will slide from arrogance to I'm not sure about this. And that's okay, because you don't wake up with the same energy levels every single day. You don't wake up with the same thought processes there every single day. We wake up with similar intentions, but knowing that, why would you then say, okay, I'm going to post online every single day? It's everything's great. Today I had a coffee and they gave it to me for free. Cool. Does that happen every day? No. So why are you shouting about it like it's something that we should all follow? What's way better is to say, today I woke up and realized that there is no money in my account, and somehow, some way I'm going to make it through. These are my plans to do this. What does that sound like in the biggest picture? That's what fundraising looks like. It's the same story, right? Just we don't really, we sit on this side, but very much like, oh, I can't today, I've got no one in the bank. Then this is a hard thing to do. Cool, if you're scared of saying it today, say it retrospectively. The same way we did earlier on, right? When you were 16 years old, back in 2015, when I was 25 years old, like these are the things that we were going through, and actually they weren't great. They weren't good. There's nothing wrong with telling a bad story in the past, because the hero journey is either actively happening or has happened and we've learned from it and we've started a new kind of arc.
And you mentioned a few times like the why. And sometimes I'm like, okay, what does this actually mean? Because it can get thrown around a lot. There's also like, who are you? So who are you really? And I hear this from quite a few guests now, actually, is like, who am I? I didn't know who I was. I'm still not sure who I am. And there's the how. So how did I end up here? What do I really want? My goals. So keeping this in mind, right? Essentially, you're like 5 whys and the how, kind of super basic. Let's say I am a new person you've just met, someone you're advising or whatever. And I'm like, I have a story, but I'm not building a personal brand around this, and I'd like to start. What questions would you ask me, or what process would you walk me through so that I could actually start doing this, right?
Yeah.
Using it as a case study if you want. Like,
Yeah.
How would you start getting someone to figure out these things, work through and build that personal brand, get to first principles, get to those first steps?
Yeah. I mean, we could role play it if you wanted to.
Let's do it.
Okay. Do you want to use yourself, or do you want to make up a whole new somebody?
I'm not going to make up a new somebody. That's too much mental effort for today.
There's only 1-7. Cool. All right. So, based on honesty, I would start with questions just to understand where you're at, and ultimately, the objective isn't so much to land on you're going to do personal branding and it's going to be great. It is you're here right now and you're trying to get somewhere over here. Can content bridge that gap?
Okay.
And if the answer is yes, great. And if the answer is no, also great. We're going for clarity is what we're going for, is truly. So I mean, the first question is, that I'd actually ask you is, why are you speaking to me? Like what has made you actually, if you're saying that you're kind of worried to start it, why today?
I've been wanting to do it for a while, so I'm just gonna use myself as an example. I have been experimenting with things for a while, doing some things for a while. I think I've realized my chosen career is only gonna work if content on social media is some part of my strategy to reach new audiences, because the things that I like and that I'm good at are these conversation-based content things that need to grow somehow. Speaking, running training, hosting things, all of these require me showing that I can communicate, that I can hold space, that I have thoughts of my own that are unique, that can help people and change their lives and contribute to meaningful change for them. And I've got to show all this off somehow. And I also know that in this space, having audience is really powerful, right? So you mentioned earlier, like technical founders, they don't necessarily need to lean into that. They just need to be really good at building their product, with an asterisk, like arguably, but like theoretically. What I do is in the creative space that exists to help people change their lives. My purpose is to help people discover and cultivate the version of themselves that they want to be and can be more of, so that they can create the world that they want to see more of. And I'm not sure I can do that without getting better at the content game. I don't really enjoy creating that content myself. I'm more than happy to outsource it, but I need to get, well, actually I need to do enough of it so that I have enough money so that I can outsource it, and also need to actually know what that is before I can outsource anything really and truly anyways.
Yeah. So you've got a number of different elements that are working for you and working really well, in the fact that you have a transformative process. And from what you're saying, that you need to get to share that transformative process with the right people. How are you sharing that with them today?
I work best when I'm actually with people in person. So actually running those workshops, running events where I'm the one hosting it, and then trying to splice that together into content. And also just kind of being a walking personal brand, in the sense that when I go into places and spaces, I always ask people questions, help them work through things, give without taking or asking anything in return, and seeing what comes back. Sort of just being the me that is already doing those things, not too concerned about if it's in a place or space that's immediately going to pay me, or that could go viral, or anything like that.
Yeah.
So mostly in person, maybe the shortest answer to your question.
So then let's remove content for a second. If you were to double down on the systems that you already have right now, what would happen?
That's the part I don't know. Because what hasn't been working is just trying to deliver, recording it, and putting it out there.
But removing content.
Even just doing that, right? If I remove all content, including just making a portfolio of it.
Yeah.
So if I'm not even making a private portfolio of content that I can send to potential clients, removing that too, I've got no way of proving I am who I say I am.
According to who?
The people I've tried to reach out to actually work with. I actually just posted about this today on LinkedIn. Just now, is I'm in this interesting catch-22 where some of the folks I reach out to, I'm too experienced for them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the folks I reach out to, they go, cool, we'll get in touch if we want this, which means no.
Yeah.
And which means they probably don't appreciate it. And that's a blind spot, right? You don't know what you don't know. It's the ultimate blind spot.
Yeah.
Or they just openly don't value it. So in other words, they say they want it, but they don't really care. They don't understand it works. You know, I'm across mental resilience, emotional intelligence, confidence, communication, things that people will go, yeah, that's great. You know, people don't have enough of this. their money isn't where their mouth is. So if we're removing all element of showing this off, everyone used to be, including myself, but actually now that I've seen the transformation, I'm like, actually, no, I know this is valuable, but no one else seems to believe it. That causes some level of self-doubt, actually. But if I don't have a way of proving I'm good at this thing, why would you ever hire me for it, right? Everyone and their mom and their grandma wants to be a host on the stage or a public speaker. You can't go, my dream is to be a public speaker, because everyone's ego is so huge that if you say that, you assume it's an ego thing. It's like, actually, no, I can prove that this is where I'm valuable.
Yeah.
But I can only prove it if I make content out of it. And at the moment, just delivering the thing has never gotten me results. I've made it technically gotten a couple clients from doing it, but I almost never close clients from delivering free workshops or whatever. And I'm still finding it's slightly better, but I'm still finding, there are people that should know me, that should know I can deliver things, that they just will not hire me. They don't think about me when they've got the gigs coming up where I'd be relevant. They're running accelerator programs where I will train your entrepreneurs better than whatever you have now. And I know that, and I can prove it. But I can't pay them to let me do it, let alone doing something for free or being paid myself.
Yeah.
I know I've kind of gone around about this. This is really timely, actually, because this has been really frustrating. I guess you could probably tell, because I'm at a point now where I'm like, I don't know what to do. My ideal world would be, I would be writing, and I'd be podcasting, and I'd be training, and I'd be going all around the world doing just this, hosting, speaking, maybe some training events, podcasting and writing. That's it. And I go all around the world doing it. And I just can't, because that's a process that requires money, and there is nowhere that money is coming from that kicks that process off. This episode will age really interestingly. I've heard a look back at this month, where have I gotten to? But it has been frustrating recently.
I think what's really cool there is you've been able to really, really quite clearly analyze what's working, what's not, which is probably the hardest part about being a business owner. A lot of people go, well, this works, and therefore it should keep working. And you're saying, well, it's working here, but then it doesn't work so well there. And actually, if I double down, it's not going to do any better, which is great. Fundamentally, if you were to boil it down, what's more interesting is when you talk about the results that you can provide, a lot of it is based on what you know. The difficulty in terms of trying to sell a service, trying to sell a product is it's nothing to do with what you know. Absolutely nothing to do with what you know. If you were to have a car and it were to break down and you needed to get to the podcast studio to record, and you need the car fixed, and on your left there's a mechanic and on your right there's a mechanic, which one are you going to?
I would have to ask them both questions, and I don't know. Both, either, I don't know.
What would make you decide that you're going to mechanic on the left, mechanic on the right?
I asked them each some questions to understand the things I felt like I needed to know.
Such as? Your car has broken down, and let's say it's got 4 flat tires, and the engine's not starting.
4 flat tires and no engine.
You are a bad driver.
This might be a miracle if I could get this car started.
Yeah.
It's a good question. It'd be a whole mix of things. My tires are flat and my engine isn't working. What would you do about this? I'd realistically ask their prices probably as well. I don't need to ask why this is important, because I know, right? Yeah.
But what would make you choose between, they both offer the same service, they're both fixed cars. Why are you going with mechanic 1 versus mechanic 2?
In that specific example you've given me, speed and cost, but probably speed. If I really need to get somewhere really important right now, speed.
Notice how you didn't mention anything about their experience. You didn't mention anything about their knowledge.
Yeah. Well, the reason I would ask them questions is to figure out if they knew how to actually do this.
100%. But the things that are important to you intrinsically are speed and cost. So then you take that and you put it on the clients that you're speaking to. You have to speak to what's important to them, not what's important to you. Kind of come back to this kind of bridging thing. And the difficulty with personal branding is, right now, if I would say to you, okay, cool, this is what we're going to do for you as an agency, and we're going to support your personal brand, it would be a disservice to you. The main reason being is that we are not dialed in enough on the problem that we're solving as a business and the transformation that happens after. So question number 1, who do you work with? And that doesn't need to be super niche and be only 5 people in the world. But it needs to be enough for someone to be able to feel like, going back to storytelling, that it resonates with them. They need to understand that if I work with Seven, he works with people that look, feel, sound like me. And that might be in the spaces that they work in. It might be in the way that they kind of attribute things in their day. But ultimately, they need to understand that you know what they do. Going back to the car example, looking at both mechanics, without speaking to them, they fix cars that look like yours. So immediately you go, well, you know, if the one on the left was a Ferrari garage and the one on the right was just your local garage, you're not going to the one on the left because you've got 4 tires and they're going to put on some expensive tires that you don't want, speed and cost. So that's where we kind of start to branch off before you've even said anything. If you're really clear on who you work with, you don't need to do all the work in convincing people. Actually, they'll do the work themselves. So that's the first thing is kind of figure out who your client is. Number 2, the problem that you're solving for them. And it has to be a problem. You have an arsenal of services that you can provide someone, which is amazing, which is great. But you become a one-man band with many solutions, and then it becomes very difficult because if you go to mechanic number 2 and they say, okay, cool, we can fix your tires for you, we can fix your engine. By the way, we have 400 tires for you to choose from. Which one do you want? Which tires are you going to pick?
I would ask if they know.
And they go back to you and say, well, it depends on what you want.
The car to work.
But you see how difficult our conversation becomes. The same is true for when you're saying, okay, well, we can do a well-being retreat, we can do a workshop, we can do, it's got to be one thing that you do and you do it really, really well. And they have to understand that. Again, before even having that conversation. I know Seven works with these people, fixes this problem. And in the world of storytelling, the way that you kind of look at that is you say, I run X business, I help Y persona to do Z thing. And if you can make that sentence over and over and over and over and over again, then it becomes really easy to say to people, hey, this is what I do. And actually, you are the perfect person to speak to. I'm not the mechanic with 400 tires. I'm not the mechanic that has really expensive cars. I'm the person that helps people in emergency situations. And we get them up in 30 minutes. Of the 2 mechanics that you had over both sides, yeah, they could probably help you, but the person or the company that says that's our brief is the first person that comes to your mind when you go, hey, 4 flat tires, it's not a good day. I don't need luck. I don't need chance or opportunity. I need a direct result. And I'm going to go to that person, even though they might not be next to me, they fix my problem. And when I call them and they say they're 20 minutes away, I'll pay whatever. Genuinely will pay whatever because actually you solve for what I need. You don't provide me with too many options.
And what if it's something that they should want but don't perceive themselves as needing?
Goes back to the same problem, right? How can they not perceive the problem if it's articulated well enough? They know. If you've got 4 flat tires and someone says your car's not going to drive and you carry on driving, God can't help you. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. So I think it's in the world of business where your ICP, right? It's knowing your ideal client profile or your buyer persona, whatever it happens to be, well enough to be able to speak to their problems so well that there isn't convincing that happens. I'm a big fan of what's called or what's known as permission-based sales. So if you ever jump on a discovery call with me or a sales call with me, generally speaking, I won't sell you anything. Don't really say, I explain how processes work and how things, what we do and what we don't do. But all of it is based on, do you want to know this? Do you want to know that? There is no part of the call that says, hey, you need to buy now, otherwise we'll move on to somebody else. It doesn't help anybody. It is all, okay, are you our ideal client profile? Are you a founder that's raised over £1 million or dollars, kind of seed to Series A? And are you looking to transform your traction into actual growth when it comes to content? And if that ICP part is fixed and is good, then we can move on to stage 2 to look at what do you want to come from that. But none of this is me saying, let's buy my products, buy my services. Actually, the whole process is, I just want to understand if the problems that you have fit one of the solutions that we have. And if the answer is yes, great. But if the answer is no, we had a great conversation, but it's much like we just had just now. There's no bad blood in kind of understanding that we're going to dive in an ICP. The hope is that you're able to go away and come back and say in 2 weeks' time, hey, we flipped this. Our model is now slightly different. We've kind of gotten rid of noise to signal, gotten rid of all the noise. And now we have this one thing that worked really, really well. And we said it over and over and over again. And then in year 2, you say, okay, now we have these 2 things because the main thing gave birth to a baby and the baby is doing really well. And now it's running around and we sell that over and over again. And now we're buying back time with birth to 3rd thing. And we do that over and over and over again.
So be really harsh with me then if I feel like I'm doing some of those things. Because to be very honest, like, and not playing devil's advocate, but just like as a slight challenge, I feel like I have been first unhelpfully on a constant journey of figuring it out. And sometimes what that means is you confuse the message because you're playing and testing and people don't know. Cool. You get that right. You think there are some people that should know, and it just feels like they just don't care or just like don't believe what you say. So then you start doing those things I was mentioning earlier where like you do some things for free, or what you said in your business, you start building a portfolio of free stuff because you had to prove you could do some shit.
Yeah.
And then like it makes no difference. Be really harsh. Does that just mean I'm failing to communicate in that instance? Does that mean like the personal brand isn't good enough? Does that mean I'm like pissing people off when they don't like me? Like what is it? Like what does it mean? Because like I feel like saying know your why. Everything that you've said here, right? This starts to have a process if you've never heard of this before that's really useful. Know your why. Begin to understand exactly who you're selling to and be able to paint a picture of exactly who that person is, really confidently communicating that's who you understand, and then giving them something they want based on what their root wants are. If you never heard any of that before, that's really valuable. I've heard it so many times over and over and feel like I'm genuinely doing it, and I could be wrong. I could just be not doing it. But when you've heard it over and over and over again, you're like, I do get it. I have all that. I do communicate that. And people just don't care. Something else, therefore, must be not working.
If you had 100 calls with 100 different prospects, would they all receive the same message?
No. But I'd ask them different questions.
But it's not the questions you're asking them, but they receive 7 does this.
Oh, good question. If they're all prospects, yeah.
What is the message that they receive?
Yeah. Now, well, the only prospects I'm going for at the moment, right, this is after some of this changing of things, is I run programmatic experiences that work on, I don't know if I'd use this word, on these nonlinear skills that are the actual difference in the success of a founder or of a leader right now. That's emotional intelligence and resilience, mental resilience, communication, self-awareness, the ability to deal with certain challenges like manipulation.
Remember here, this is the arsenal. You started off with, this is who I work with, and now you've given me the whole arsenal. But I don't know what you're solving for. Ultimately,
you are going to fail if you cannot be a good leader. And period.
Objective is subjective.
Okay, this is the problem. This is why I pull out this arsenal, because it's a bit like when social media marketing was this totally new thing. It's like there you have customers on here, and you'll make more money if you go on here. Prove it. It's like, okay, AI is gonna fucking replace you, and the only way to stand out is by being a better leader. What does a better leader mean? The arsenal of things. It's like,
not necessarily. I think what you've got here is it's like this idea of the cart before the horse. Right? The arsenal is very important, but that comes as like almost like the bonus after the process has begun. So someone starts a process with you and they go, "Oh my god, this guy's able to talk to the most elite leaders who've worked kind of in the highest spaces, but also is able to work with people who've just started out on their journey and don't really have an idea of how the business works." His versatility and flexibility is something we really value. It's a value add. It is not the core offering, right? I'll give you an example from our world just to illustrate the picture a little bit easier, right? Fundamentally for personal branding and running an agency that specializes in it, we should only focus on scripts and cameras.
okay.
That is what people kind of on the outside see as like, okay, you do video first personal branding and therefore it's cameras, lights, action over and over and over again. I would say 80% of the business is mindset shifts and executive coaching. It is working with leaders, it is working with founders and getting them to understand, one, that part you talked about over here of I'm too scared to post or I'm too arrogant to post, and say, hey, we need to get you to the middle. Because if we start here and start recording, we're going to be wasting your time, which is really not the way that we want to move forward. And the other thing is really and truly is once you kind of got to that middle part, you're going to have way much more fun because you're not working with two extremes of ego. You're working with what is more of a balanced ego. It's good to have ego, it's fantastic, but not on either side. On any discovery call, on any kind of conversation with other people, that is not the first thing that is brought up. In fact, it is part of the onboarding to say, surprise, we're going to work on what we need to work on first before we can get things out there. And it's a really fun process. It's very dynamic. They get to kind of test things out. They get to throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks and actually learn from the process, which kind of builds our own kind of internal capacities. All of these things are great things that I could start off and say, hey, I want an agency called Scale Story. We'll help you with executive coaching. We'll help you with 10 years experience of working with different business owners. We'll also help you with workshops and presentations. Another arm of the business is, because you're becoming a better public speaker, you'll get more PR gigs. All of these things are within the arsenal. And there are things that we do, don't mention that. We boil it down to, we work with scaling founders who have raised £1 million or more to help them turn their traction into a content growth machine. And what does that actually mean? What is the thing that they're fighting from? Essentially, in conversation, once you've raised £1 million, you're presented with a problem, which is you need public traction. You need kind of a public-facing profile. Because in the journey to grow the business, you need to get public backing for people to actually say, I believe in it in this day and this age. And that isn't something that I have defined or I have decided. That is literally that pivotal point where investors will say, okay, how are you doing when it comes to PR? How are we going to be able to get you on Sky News, BBC News? And if we're expanding to new markets, how do we get your face out there before the business face? That is the problem that we solve for. And we chose specifically looking at kind of seed Series A because that is a pivotal point when that happens. We could look at doing pre-seed. We could look at doing kind of way more early stage, kind of before growth stage, I guess, to look at the same problems. But the difficulty is we're not solving it for anything. We're providing a service that, one, is way too expensive at that stage, and two, more importantly, doesn't solve a problem that is apparent enough. It is exactly what you're saying earlier on. They can see the value in it, definitely see the value in it, but why now? Every conscious decision you've made to purchase a product, every conscious decision you made to kind of buy into a service is off the back of the fact that you are trying to solve for a problem today. Or you're trying to solve for a problem that is consistent and it's growing. But it's still, again, for today. If I said to you right now, that you're sat here, I sell helmets, you're not going to buy one because it doesn't make any difference to you. If you were about to buy a motorbike and you didn't have a helmet and I say I sell helmets, very easy buy. So what we want to do is we want to, as Warren Buffett says, fish where the fishes are. You want to sell to the people that actually want to buy. You want to feed the fish where they're actually going to feed from. I think going back to you, the arsenal is fantastic. But that is the part that you really get to shine with after signatures and after onboardings and after that kind of stuff. And it's fun. It's really, 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 really great to be able to kind of work with someone and then go, oh God, you told me that you do one thing, but you do a lot more. And it's like, it depends on the person, but we still only do one thing. So what I would invite you to look at is, let's look at a transformation process. It's less about you are going to be a poor leader if you don't do these exercises, if you don't do these workshops, if you don't sign up to these webinars, if you don't do all of these things, because that puts someone back up against the wall and they're like, actually, who are you to tell me that? And then it goes into that conversation of, well, show me your experience. Let me have a look at your LinkedIn. Let me verify that you are who you say you are. But that's not a nice place to be kind of sharing your story. What's more exciting is kind of really identifying what is the transformation that happens. So someone moves from A to B. A being frustrated, not being able to communicate, poor management of energy, all of these things that you already know because this is your area of speciality, this is your kind of bread and butter. What is the B state? What is the transformation that happens that makes them feel elevated, feel good, feel like the problems have been solved? But less so like, okay, tick box, it's done, fix your problem, and more so like, the problem has been fixed, but actually I'm open to do more things because of the fact that this has been solved. So there's a lightness to it. The weightiness has been lifted from it.
From X to Y is what it feels like you're describing. Like X is the problem state, Y is the transformed state.
Correct.
That transformed state needs to, the way I like to describe it is this study that you've probably heard of where if, for example, I said run a 5K and I'll give you 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Or I say run a 5K and I'll take 100 pounds from you that you didn't have. You're much more motivated on average by the second one. People are much more motivated by losing something they don't currently that they currently have. Gaining something new they don't, unless they really need that thing. And so when I think about what you were saying earlier, like cost, and unless you're selling to the really rich, it's like cost and speed, right? Unless you're selling to someone who wants high quality, it's cost and speed. You either need to give someone something they want that they don't currently have, or help them save something they're currently losing. So I think about like some of the things I do as honestly as both. Some of it is actually protecting your risk or is decreasing risk, right? Your entrepreneur, if you're an investor, your entrepreneurs are far more likely to fail if they don't have the emotional intelligence required to hold themselves in certain situations, for example.
Yeah.
And if you don't do something about that, or if you do something about that, you're de-risking, right? So you're going to save something you currently have. We also know that they'll make more money. So you're going to get more money and get it faster. But what is this Y state, this secondary state, this transformation state? What is that? How do you paint that picture like really effectively? Like,
Yeah.
I understand this. There's a number of different situations here based on who you're selling to and what their needs are. Like you do a needs assessment. Is cost their biggest thing? Is speed their biggest thing? Is quality their biggest thing? But how would you walk me through that process?
I would actually start with challenging a couple of things just to understand. When we talk about cost and we talk about speed being these variables of like how people make decisions, if we put a lot of weight on them, then they become the forefront of the conversation. If you were to remove cost, so let's assume the person that's kind of buying into your service doesn't actually care about cost because there's money in the bank. And they don't necessarily care about speed because ultimately the arsenal that you have doesn't necessarily mean that you can fix a problem in a day for everyone. For some people it might be a day, for some people it might be 2 years. So let's remove cost and speed. What are we solving for?
It depends on who the buyer is, but in this case, I just mentioned like is usually VCs or ecosystem players. So the problem we're solving for is the vast majority of their investments fail. And what if more of them succeeded and succeeded faster?
And why are they failing?
Because they don't have that arsenal. Like I don't know how else to describe that. Like they're just fucking not good enough. Like I mean, you can tell I'm a bit frustrated because I'm like, it's not with you. It's just it's the place I'm at in general. It's like I have ways I have put this in pitch decks that come across a bit better than this, but it's like you are a child in an adult's body. You're not gonna run a company. Fucking period. Like I don't. So there are better ways of describing that, but I don't know how to boil that down into a soundbite that is actually true.
Help me paint a picture. So let's describe the ideal client in the VC space. Don't have to name them, but let's just call them Apple VC.
Sure. Yeah.
Apple VC CEO is Tim Cook.
Nice.
Now, in this organization, who are you looking to work with first? If we look at the whole structure within that VC, who do you think you're going to have the most impact with if they said, look, let's do a trial run for a week? Don't worry about the arsenal too much. Just think about the actual person or people. Who is going to be the best person, kind of best group to say?
Sure, that's a really good question, actually, because the person that's probably the right person to speak to in the company is the platform team. But the platform team's job isn't technically to de-risk their investments. That's kind of the whole firm's job. I don't know, unless you've got a head of people, which a few firms do, but a lot of them don't.
So let's work with the ones that don't. So who are you going to have? Not what the company thinks. Who do you, from your expertise, think is going to have the most impact from?
Yeah, realistically, if the fund is too small for that, then the founding partner or one of the founding partners, a partner in the firm, which if it's a smaller firm, ideally the founders.
Okay. And as a firm grows, who would then be the second best group? They're big enough to have more budget, big enough to have a bigger team, call it 2025, but they don't have a chief of staff.
Yeah, a 2025 person, they would have a platform, at least a platform person, and platform in VC means they exist to run the offerings that the firm gives to the founders. A lot of firms, they try to differentiate by saying we offer our founders extra. We don't just give you money, we also give you X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And that's that person.
And that person, how much stress are they under on a daily basis?
The platform person,
Yeah.
a lot less than the partners.
So they're managing their energies better. What is the kind of outcome for that, for the platform person? If like today they don't have you and then tomorrow they do have you, what does that look like in terms of the difference between yesterday and today?
That's a good question. If their founders start doing better, that's a really good question, because some of them might be judged based on, like, if their performance might just be an ops role. Are you managing this effectively? But if some of them, I don't know exactly. I'd imagine some of them have, are the support we're providing good enough? If the whole firm succeeds because our platform offering is improved, then we all win together. But do I, as the platform person who's managing all of that, get like a bonus or reward for it or something? I don't know.
Yeah. So this is the part let's dive into, basically. To be able to tell your story effectively to other people, you have to know it intrinsically. The difficulty right now is if you were to go to Apple VC and you were to go to Apple, ultimately the story doesn't change that much. It shouldn't. The same way for us, right? It doesn't really matter if we go from seed to Series A to IPO'd, still working with that whole traction and content growth piece. So the reason why there's probably a bit more frustration here coming to the surface is that when you're speaking to people, you're not solving for a specific problem, and they're asking you questions about this and you answer it, and they ask you questions about that and then you answer it, and you're kind of pulling out these different things each time. Going back to the origin of this conversation, we talked about like how we're creatures of habits and how we like to have frameworks and there's a comfort around it. This is the same thing. When someone who's having a conversation with you, they like to know that actually this is the lane that we're in. This is what we're looking at. Specifically for this call today, we're looking at this thing and we're going to see if it's a good fit. And because I have that guardrail, they're not going to ask you things that are, hey, can you do a workshop today and can you do something else tomorrow? More so, they're going to ask you things about, okay, for this specific outcome, can we do this? No, because it's not within our wheelhouse. Can we do that? No, because it's not within our wheelhouse. Our biggest challenge of storytelling, kind of going back to this idea of why, is this is the why process. You have to start with why, otherwise you end up in a space where we're kind of shotgun methoding things and saying, okay, I shoot and I hit, you 100% hit, but you're a specialist and an expert, and because of that, when you shoot, it's bullseye or near enough. And if it's not bullseye or near enough, then we're in the cycle of, I shot, I missed, I'll try again tomorrow. I shot, I missed, I'll try again tomorrow. Either we change the aim, we change the tool that we're using, or make it a lot easier for ourselves and just become a bit more proficient in saying, this is the direction I'm going in.
Yeah, I think this is a really useful example, because there are a lot of folks that I know that are just like not hitting any home runs. And they're like, why? I don't know why. And I think me being frustrated right now and using this example is actually really helpful, because a lot of folks are like, but this should work. Isn't this obvious? And it's obvious to us.
Yeah.
Right? It's always obvious to us.
Yeah.
And the challenge is removing yourself from your own shoes.
Start with the why, but also follow up with being genuinely curious. One of our taglines is stay curious, keep scaling. And the reason why it exists is actually the most fun part about being an entrepreneur is you are a curious individual and you spend every single day trying to better yourself and trying to better the business, which then subsequently leads onto your team. If you take the approach of this isn't working, I need to fix it and try again tomorrow, it is hitting your head against the wall. If you curiously explore the next 5, 10 conversations with prospects and say, okay, look, this is the thing that I have to offer. One thing, no arsenal. And let's say, for example, just to make it really easy, you're only going to do internal workshops. And the workshops aren't going to be curated. They're going to be very specific that talk about one thing and one thing only. And in these conversations as you're speaking to these people, try and understand if they were to have it, why they want it. And more importantly, if they weren't to have it, why they don't want it, why it doesn't work for them. And you make notes as you do. And as you make these notes, you'll start to realize that there's a pattern. 3 or 4 people might say the same things of why they do want it. And then 3 or 4 people might say the things of why they don't want it. And you slam those together and all of a sudden you've gone from having an arsenal of 700 things that you can offer, 400 tires that you can choose from, to we sell this type of tire because this is what people need. Why do I know that? Because we went out and spoke to the people. We started off kind of early stage, looking at founders that were way more early stage because that's where ultimately, being transparent, I wanted to have the most impact. And I wanted to have the most impact there because so many startups live and die by their ability to storytell. And much like what we're exploring today, as somebody who could potentially be backed by investors, you hitting your head against the wall against why this isn't working and then having to go to explain to investors why it should work is a really, really hard task. But if you're able to communicate that problem a bit easier, a bit more efficiently, there's less hitting your head against the wall. And this is why I think that we're all storytellers. We just sometimes get stuck in, okay, I want it this way. And it's that, you can have it this way. Just put a couple of things, put some ingredients in there, season it just a little bit, and give people an easier ride. Let that prospect conversation or that discovery call or whatever you want to call it go way more smoother by being curious and saying, I've got a thing. It's a beautiful thing and it could work. For you, it could work for someone else. I have no idea. But I'm going to ask a couple of questions to see if it's a good fit. And also be really, really happy if you could tell me what things work for you and what things don't work for you.
This went longer than I thought because we went down the rabbit hole of my bullshit. But hopefully it ends up being useful because you did actually manage to answer quite a few of my questions this way. So there's some things I have to skip and we maybe have to come back for a part 2 or something. This idea of like, look, everyone is saying Gary Vee, Stephen Bartlett, all these people are like, build a personal brand. This helps you stand out, etc. And what I'm really hearing is more so than should you build one is get something right first. And the interesting thing is, like, I think a lot of us are more there than we think we are. Like, in my head, I'm like, fuck, I have to go back to the drawing board again. Like, I've done this over and over and over for like a decade. I'm fucking tired. But actually, maybe I'm like 95% of the way there. I don't need to do those interviews. Like, they always help. And I love asking questions. This brings me to, I guess, my final question for you before we wrap up, which is, if I've only got, I don't know, a month before I need to make some money in that month, right? This isn't quite using me as an example anymore, but it's actually not far off. Like, my runway isn't huge, which is why I'm like, this something needs to give fast.
Yeah.
What's the lowest leverage, fastest thing you recommend to actually get some traction?
The difficulty is the answer is one that you're not going to like. Personal branding is a fantastic tool and it is great to leverage everything that you have and that arsenal and to get it out there and to get to the public and share that story. It is totally useless without the strongest of foundations. So if you only had a month to get things right, I would double down on what the business is, who it serves, and why you serve them. You can always make content off the back of that at a later stage, but the worst thing you can do is spend a month shouting into a void saying, this is what we're doing, and not really speaking to the right audience, not really kind of resonating with the people that you need to resonate with. So with that month, I would, one, double down on what the business is. Number two, connect with your ideal audience, send the messages if you want to send the messages. At the end of the day, a personal brand is more than just video, it's then images and content. It is also how you speak and communicate with people online and in person as an entrepreneur. And therefore, you are still building that personal brand through DMs and through kind of showing up in spaces. But just know that your foundation needs to be strong. And then you can jump on to things like, hey, I'm going to work with this agency and they're going to change my life around. Potentially.
I think that's really useful because people can get stuck in the habit of wasting a lot of time doing these things when they're not ready or it's not right for them. I have met founders who, they go, I'm building a B2C app for young people. So I'm going to start posting on content on TikTok. And it's bad content and they're actually B2B2C. So they're selling to the wrong person and it's all about fat waste of time. So the business can go under for just doing that. So actually, I do think that's useful. It's like, don't bother with the whole personal brand content thing until you're ready for it, because it might just not be right for you or not yet, and it just ends up wasting time. There's a closing question I ask everyone who comes on the show to wrap us up. The show is called Lost in Searching. You spent a lot of time today helping me figure out something I'm a bit lost about, but now we're going to learn from you. What is the number one question in your life that you are currently searching for the answer to?
It's something that I'm actually currently exploring quite a lot, and I'm finding it to be fruitful, and I'm wondering where it's going to take me. I am someone who's a big thinker. I like to kind of just do things and figure out if they could work or not. Trying to move away from that a lot and being able to lean on the team more and delegate, because that's a really important part of kind of growing, especially as an agency. But one thing that I'm trying to solve, trying to figure out is a little and frequently is better than a lot and infrequently. To what point is the former bad? So I've spent my whole life doing kind of like big wave of work, and then, okay, cool, now we're going to look at something else. And then another big wave of work, and then we look at something else. And now it's like a little bit of work today, a little bit of work tomorrow. And I say a little bit of work in terms of on a thing. It might be a little bit of work on figuring out new ideas, a little bit of work on looking at new opportunities, a little bit of work on creating workshops. It's this idea of kind of like doing that over and over again. Is it valuable? And it's something I've just made up. As in, I made it up because, interestingly, my son again, he's learning languages because he hears a little frequently, and therefore, little by little, he's saying, learning things that were just like, it's great, silly thing. He put in like an earbud, a Q-tip the other day and put it next to his ear. I'm like, what? What is this? But he's seen it happen enough times to be like, okay, this is a thing. And I sat down and watched that and was like, God, why do I think that everything has to be done in big waves? This guy just watched for ages and then said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it once, and I'll try it again another time and try it again another time. Same with speech, same with walking, same with everything. It's got to be something here. So yeah, does a little and frequently result in something, and I don't know the answer just yet. I'm very happy to be proved right or wrong. So I'm going to give it a go.
What do you think so far?
I'm loving it so far.
Okay.
I'm loving it so far because talking about energy, my stress levels are way lower because I feel like I'm making progress all the time, even though the progress might be little, versus, oh, I've got this really big task to do, procrastinate. Oh God, it's due. It's done.
Yeah.
I'm very good at getting a task done 5 minutes before a deadline. Amazing at it. However, I could be even greater if I didn't wait to the last kind of 5 minutes. So the proof in the pudding will actually be hopefully looking at announcing a couple of things, Scale Story, at the end of this month, beginning of August, depending on how good I am at actually doing a little family.
Yeah. Well, look, dude, I mean, you're a very reflective person. You're also very honest and what's the word? Like forward with yourself. You're in that movement. So if you feel like it's working for you, it probably is. And it, to me, it's always comes back to what's the most useful thing. So which is better or worse isn't very helpful. It's like, is this useful or not?
Yeah.
And you're someone who's able to constantly go, actually, was that useful or wasn't that? And And in the same way you've done for us today, you're able to help us figure out, well, actually, is that part really useful? Are you making an assumption there? I think you already have the answer. You just don't know, because you're waiting for those results to come. You don't know exactly to what extent.
Yeah.
But I think you do have the answer, and you're probably doing the right thing. So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
you're constantly staying in movement. So either way, you'll figure it out, though.
Yeah.
Look, dude, I appreciate you so much for coming down, for making the time, for rearranging some schedule stuff to be here with me, for being very detailed and thorough with us today, through bearing with me with my really annoying example and my frustration, but also actually being able to turn that into something that answered a whole bunch of the questions that I was going to ask you anyway, just with a live example.
I appreciate it, though.
So yeah, really, really appreciate your I guess adaptability and your capability in the practical use case and being able to make something that anyone can take something away from. So thank you very much, man. I appreciate you.
No, thank you for giving me the opportunity, and more so, I really hope that it has been useful for someone outside of this circle.
Yes.
My whole big thing is,
I'm really annoyed at myself.
well, no, my whole big thing is really and truly, if it can help one person that isn't here in the room, then we've done a good job. So the hope is one person can walk away and say, hey, look, I learned a thing. And it might be the fact that I learned from a 1.5-year-old on a daily basis, and everyone's going to try and do that. But hey, if that's the thing, also very happy. So I appreciate the opportunity and for bearing with me and my weird back, which we're getting stronger. We're getting stronger.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Well, look at you making it to the end of the episode. Welcome. There's a lot more for you to do. If you're still here, there's a full playlist on YouTube down below. There's a recommended video probably somewhere around the screen or down below, and so much more. Give us a follow, help share if you're here. Hey, maybe you enjoyed it. And look, this show only grows with your help. So again, I know you're probably bored of hearing it, but it would mean the world to me if you help us out and paid it forward and shared it around. And hey, you never know how this will help someone else. So thank you so much for being here, for being a part of it. Lots of love, and here is to your success. See you soon.